Next up in the Angelus leather dye series, we're going to do blue leather dye. I've got my Angelus blue leather dye, and I've got two mixes, one that's full strength right out of the bottle, one that's been mixed 50-50 with the Angelus leather neutral. We'll do the same piece of wood as before. I've sanded it down. We'll do the half and half, and then we'll do full color, half and half, full color. I've got some old t-shirts, and we'll start with the half and half first. We'll soak this in. Move to the figured piece. Let that soak in for a second. We'll move back to the top piece here. Applied a lot of dye. So we'll just let that sit and soak in. Come back to the figured piece, rub that in again. Let that sit. We'll come back with the full strength blue. Apply that on the figured here first. Comes out much, much darker. Apply 2 coats again. Now what's interesting is this blue looks really purple. So we'll let this sit. A couple hours. Wipe off any of the excess here. Excess. Do not like splotchiness. Too much color leaves everything splotchy. So like I said, we'll let this sit. We'll come back then with the sandpaper, hit it with 240 grit or 180 grit sandpaper, see what it looks like sanded back. Alright, so again, we're looking at a couple hours past. The thinned blue, again, is blotchy. The full dye looks great in the figured and in the plain piece. But where I thinned it out, it does not look that well. So we're going to get some sandpaper, sand this down, and see what it looks like. So depending on how much sanding pressure you put on, you can do a lot of different things with this piece of wood. In the figured piece, the blue actually became sort of a light blue, and the splotchiness for the most part is pretty much gone. And then on the darker side, you've got more blue in the grain actually, so it's not as dark. So this is how Paul Reed Smith does the blue jeans PRS. They essentially take the blue, sand it off, and leave it. In the non-figured piece, you can actually see the sanding lines from where I sanded, and you can see how much of the streakiness is in the plain piece when I laid it on really thick. So a lot of the splotchiness is actually gone in the lighter piece, and on the darker piece it's more of a consistent blue. And this also depends on how you're sanding. If you're holding it in one specific spot for too long, you get a different fade, you get a different look. All of this looks different as you sort of apply different sanding pressure. So we're going to get a little bit of wipe on poly here, Minwax wipe on poly. I'll just show you guys what this looks like with something on it. And this lightly figured piece actually looks really cool. You get a really nice deep look on that piece, and I'm assuming you're going to get that here on the figured piece. Like that swimming pool effect where you want to dive in. And that looks really, really cool. So then we'll go to the darker piece. I would actually say the lighter piece looks better on the thin side, and I'm assuming on the figured side, oh yeah, looks much better, much more figuring and popping with the full blue on the figured, but sort of a neat effect with the light blue on the plain piece. But even with this wipe on poly, you get a really neat effect within this plain board and the heavily figured board. Wish I had more time to do the blue swimming pool in the figured piece. My blue burst that I posted 5 or 6 years ago had this same deep figure, and at the end of the day it really is about how figured the piece of wood is. If you've got a not as heavily figured piece of wood, you want to add as many colors as you can to see what you can get to pop. But in a really heavily figured piece, you just need a little bit of color, a little bit of finish, and you get it to really pop. So this was Angelus leather dye, the blue, straight from the bottle and thinned 50% with their neutral. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next vid.